Hi everyone. Welcome to week 6 of our Huddles launch. Now I hope that you've been able to meet with your groups, whether it's over Zoom or Skype or Facebook rooms, or even in person, hopefully in a socially distanced gathering. I hope you've been able to gather in some form with your huddles to just keep this momentum forward in terms of establishing the rhythm of gathering for your huddle. So my hope is that you continue to gather, and even after this Huddles launch is done, this just becomes a regular part of your life, whether it's in a life group or whether it's just these people in your huddle have become just your core group of people that you're going to be doing life with for the next while. I hope that the huddle establishes a regular rhythm in your life. Speaking of rhythms, we're going to talk today about rhythms of rest and work. But before that, I'm going to give you some time to go through some of the previous material that we've done. You see, as we gather in our huddles, we're going to be going through the same material over and over. It's going to be actually underlying all of our conversations. And the hope is that this transforms our conversations. It transforms the questions that we ask each other. And so, in light of that, I want to ask you today to spend some time at the beginning of this huddle session to just review with each other. What are the 4 questions related to breakthrough? And share that with each other. Teach those things to each other. I'll give you a hint, okay? The 4 questions are: who is God? What has he done? Who am I in light of that? And how am I to live? And I want you guys to gather together, and I want you to just discuss, what are those 4 questions together? Put them in your own words, very briefly, and we'll move on from there. We'll see you in a bit. So, welcome back. I hope that you had a good review session with your huddle. You were able to go through those 4 questions, but not only go through those 4 questions and review them, I hope that you were able to put them in your own words. You see, with the huddle, what we're looking for is life transformation. And life transformation really happens when we're taking all these concepts, when we're talking about breakthrough, when we're talking about identity, when we're talking about storytelling. It's about taking these things and putting them into our own words so that when we walk people through these things, we become better and better at communicating them. That's really what it is when you pick up a new language. You really make it your own when you start to put it in your own words. And the only way that you get better at putting it in your own words is through practice. So I hope that you continue to review our material and review these things as we go on. And even after this Huddles launch is over, I hope that these things will just form the basis for your discussion going forward from here. I want to take some time today to talk about rest and work. We're really talking about this rhythm that is set in our life. And so I want you to imagine a hypnotist or a magician, right? And they put you under this, hypnotized kind of state of hypnosis, right? For lack of a better word. And I want you to imagine he holds out this pendulum in front, and this pendulum is just swinging back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. This is what our rhythm of rest and work looks like in our life. It's like a pendulum that swings back and forth between rest and work. And so I want you to imagine that. Rest and work. This isn't a new concept. Rest and work has actually been something that has been woven into the very fabric of creation. At the very beginning, at creation, God, the first thing he does when he creates man is he says, "Go and be fruitful and multiply." And yet, the first thing he does with man is they rest. So from that resting point, God goes and he sends man and he says, "Go and be fruitful and multiply." Rest and work. We see rest and work happening in creation. We see it especially when it comes to agriculture, or when it comes to gardening. We see a period of fruitfulness and growth in the spring, leading into that fruitfulness in the summer, and then as we swing back to winter, right, we see things happening through the fall where all the fruit is harvested, all the branches are pruned, all the leaves start to fall off, and there's these beautiful colors that come, and yet at the same time, things are falling off the trees, things are going away, or things are being pruned away towards this time of abiding or barrenness. And so, at least in gardening, when we're in the winter session or winter season, things may look almost dead, but really they're just waiting for the right time. They're waiting for the right time to move back and grow towards fruitfulness. It's the same way in our lives. We have periods of our life where we are busier, and these are periods of work, right? And in those periods, we grow towards fruitfulness. And that growth can look like growth in skills, growth in our competency. It could just be growth personally, and growth in our mindset, or growth in our relationship with God. But that growth moves towards fruitfulness, where we start to see the fruit of our work. We start to see things happening, and that is really this concept of the pendulum swinging towards work or towards fruitfulness. But we also see this time of pruning, where we see commitments start to end. We see things start to go away, whether by our own choice or circumstance or even God's leading. We see things starting to be pruned away, ministries. We see maybe some relationships or some ways of thinking being pruned away towards a season of abiding and rest. And in that season of abiding and rest, we spend that time, learning from God, listening to Him, hearing His voice, and when the time is right, we start to see Him moving us back towards this season of work, where we again experience that growth and that fruitfulness. And so, just as it is built into the fabric of creation, we see this season of rest and work happening in our lives. And so, as I've explained that, I want you to go back into your huddles, and I want you to talk about this. What resonates with you, and what maybe doesn't sit well with you? And if you can ask each other a further question, as you reflect upon your life and where you are right now, what season do you think that you're in? So look at the season of your life. Are you in a season of abiding? Are you in a season of growth? Are you in a season of fruitfulness? Or are you in a season of pruning? So go back to your huddles. We'll see you in a bit. Later. Welcome back. I hope that you had a good discussion around rest and work, and what sat well with you, what resonated with you, what didn't sit well with you, but more importantly, what season you might be in. Is it a season of pruning? Is it a season of abiding, a season of growth, or a season of fruitfulness, or just a general season of rest and work? I hope that you were able to just spend some time reflecting and talking about that together. I want to talk to you about 4 regular rhythms of rest that we can employ in our daily life, in our everyday life. And the reason why is because everything flows out of our relationship with Jesus. When we spend time with God, we are reminded of who He is, what He's done, who we are in light of that, and what He has called us to do. But the thing is, when we don't spend time with God, we allow all these other things to have a voice in our life. The way The way I think about it is like in the middle of traffic or in the middle of like a busy intersection. There's just all these noises happening, right? And say if you were looking for a friend in the middle of like, I don't know, a young and shepherd, and you're trying to look for your friend, and they're calling out to you, but at the same time there's just wind howling, there's cars honking, there's just people talking, everyone's on their, everyone's walking and talking and on their phones. It becomes hard for you to hear your friend's voice, and that's kind of the way that I see rest. It gives us an opportunity to hear our friend's voice. But the only way we can do so is by spending time listening, spending time in the quiet, not in the busy intersection of life where, the daily things that we need to do, things from work, things from school, things from play, all these things are on our mind. We need to find a time to spend before God in silence and stillness. And so everything flows out of our relationship with God. Here are 4 ways that you can spend time with God. The first one being silence and stillness. Now, I did an exercise in silence and stillness before, and I'm going to link you to the video for you to go through later. This is a regular rhythm of rest that you can employ in your life. You can do it multiple times during the day where you go to God and you just spend 2 or 3 minutes before Him. Silence and stillness, where you say to Him, God, I am here for you, and there are things that are definitely on my mind, but I just lay them before you. And as those things come, you just lay those things before Him. But you are not the one mainly speaking. You are seeking God, asking Him to show Himself to you in His still, small voice, in a gentle whisper. That's silence and stillness. The second rhythm of rest that we can employ is Sabbath. Sabbath is so important to God, so important that He, at the very beginning of creation, establishes Sabbath as a form of rest. He rests on the 7th day with man, before He sends man out to do work. And after He rescues His people, Israel, He gives them the Sabbath. Jesus even talks about the Sabbath as a gift. He says, was man made for the Sabbath, or was Sabbath made for man? Sabbath is a gift from God, and it's a regular rhythm of rest we can employ weekly. So if we have a daily rhythm of silence and stillness, we have a weekly rhythm of Sabbath. We can also have a periodic or monthly rhythm of solitude, where we go to God and we just spend time before Him in solitude. We get away from our friends, we get away from all those different kinds of things that are just trying to demand our attention, and we just spend time with God. And that can be simply a walk in, just a walk on a trail. It can be time spent doing something you really enjoy, but apart from other people. Solitude is that monthly rhythm. And finally, we have sabbatical, which is kind of like a more like a periodic kind of rest. You can look at sabbatical as just an extended time away from ministry, or an extended time away from these things that are just demanding our attention. But it's also an intentional way of seeking God and spending time with Him and enjoying the things that He's given you. Sabbatical. And so these are 4 ways in which we can employ rest in our lives: silence and stillness, Sabbath, solitude, and sabbatical. Now, I want you to go back into your groups, and you can use this time to just finish off any discussion that you've had about rest and work. And I want you to talk about what rest looks like in your lives. Which of these 4 things are you employing? Which ones are you struggling to employ? And together, from that, I want you to talk about the 2 questions of what God might be saying to you today, and how are you to live in light of that, specifically having to do with rest. What rhythm of rest do you need to spend a bit more time doing? So we're going to give you that time, and we'll see you in a bit. Welcome back. I hope that you were able to have a good conversation about these 4 rhythms of rest: silence and stillness, Sabbath, solitude, and sabbatical. And I hope that you can begin to employ some, if not all, of these rhythms of rest in your life. The reason why is because the huddles are all about hearing what God might be saying to us and acting or doing something about it based off of what he is saying to us. And the only way that we can hear what he's saying to us is if we spend time with him. You see, most of the time we spend our time talking to God, talking at God. We tell him about what we want, we tell him about what we think and what we feel. Even in our Bible study, we approach him many times wanting things from him. We want information from him, but really spending time with God is just about receiving from him. And so I hope that you're able to employ these things so that you can receive from him, so that you are able to get a better grasp of who he is, what he's done, who you are in light of that, and from that, what you are to do. And so as you spend time receiving from him, those things become clearer. The noise in our lives, the things that keep us busy, the things that keep us occupied, those things fade in importance when we spend time with God. And the whole idea is that we can rest. We can rest because we have a God who is always at work. And so if God is always at work, then there are times where we don't need to be at work. And that's a good thing. Rest is a good thing. And so let that be my final encouragement for you today. Employ some rhythms of rest in your life and learn to slow things down and just enjoy what he is doing in your life. So we'll see you next week.